Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Morning, Michael.
Today, in just 5 minutes, we are going to tackle the question that every mortgage holder and would-be home buyer in the country once answered. When will interest rates start climbing?
I think there are a few pensioners out there who want to know the answer to this one, Michael. For most of 2021, the Reserve Bank was pretty insistent that it wouldn't happen until 2024. But just before Christmas, the central bank opened the door to an earlier hike. Economist Stephen Koukoulas joins us. You can find him at thekouk.com.au or on Twitter using the handle thekouk. Stephen, when do you think we'll see the Reserve Bank increased interest rates?
Oh, look, Sean and Michael, I think we've got a really interesting year unfolding for the RBA. They, as you said, they ended 2021 still pretty firmly of the view that rates are on hold for longer rather than sooner, that they were wanting to wait and see until, inflation picked up, till wages growth picked up, not just for one quarter, but for an extended period before they'd actually consider hiking rates. Now, with that having been said, the way that the economy has recovered from that Delta lockdown in the September quarter last year has been pretty stunning. We've got indicators coming through thick and fast on the jobs market, on housing still, government stimulus is still there. We've got an election not that far away, and no doubt there'll be some pork barreling and spending, dare I be cynical for a moment. But the economy's got a real head of steam. So even though the rhetoric from the RBA is that it's going to be later rather than sooner that we'll get the first of these rate hikes, I think the market and my own views are that we may well see something happen around the middle of the year.
Okay, so let's bring it down to home owners. When we talk about the Reserve Bank lifting the official cash rate, that really flows through to the variable interest rate on home loans. Is that right?
That's correct. So when the Reserve Bank adjusts their official cash rate, it's the yield that the banks in the interbank market, won't get too complex, but that's the rate that they borrow from each other. And as they set it at the Reserve Bank at a higher yield than the one currently paying, the banks are paying more for their funds. And that's how they raise the money to lend to you and me and the listeners when they take out a mortgage. So as that yield goes up, the banks pass it pretty much straightforward on to us. So that's the transmission mechanism from the RBA adjusting the official interest rates, and having them impact on the rates that you and I borrowed to fund our mortgages.
Okay, but then in the last 4 or 6 weeks, fixed rate mortgages have certainly risen.
That's true, because they're priced from a very different mechanism. So when you're thinking about a variable rate, that is, the rate that you pay every month. So it's really short-term money. But the 3, 4, even some of the 5-year fixed rate mortgage products are priced off a different structure in the interest rates. And that's basically, this is a bit simplified, but it's basically where the futures market, where the bond market is actually pricing. And of course, those yields aren't determined by the Reserve Bank. They're determined by the market.
Yeah, right.
And the market usually moves well ahead of any moves in official rates, because every day we're seeing the market reacting to jobs numbers, to news out of the United States, to news about inflation. And so those yields can move higher well before the RBA hikes its official rates. And of course, that's what's been happening. So a lot of those fixed rate products that we're seeing from just about all the banks have increased because the market is anticipating higher interest rates over the next few years. And that's what's being passed on in the form of higher fixed rate mortgages.
Okay, now we always talk about people with home loans, and I remember a banker once telling me a rule of thumb is a third of people rent, a third of people own, and a third of people have a mortgage. Some people really want higher interest rates, and I'm thinking pensioners here.
Oh, that's been a real bugbear in this era of near zero interest rates, and certainly with a lot of deposit rates at the bank, you're getting nothing. If you're lucky to get 0.1 on some of these term deposits. So for pensioners who have got a tidy nest egg of savings and they don't want to necessarily want to put it into the risky stock market and these sorts of things, or perceived to be risky, I should say, and they want their money in cold hard cash that's easily withdrawn and added to, and higher interest rates will see their cash flow improve. So I dare say there'll be a lot of pensioners, a lot of savers, and even those saving for their first home deposit, because of course that interest rate effect can help them to increase their savings pool too. So there are some people who actually benefit from higher interest rates.
Okay, finally. So you think the Reserve Bank might have to move the middle of this year. What are the key data points you'll be keeping an eye on to see what's going to happen?
I think there's just 2 things that we need to look at: the inflation data and the wages data. If in coming quarters, we get the March quarter, the June quarter CPI inflation numbers and the wage data confirming what we think is happening from the anecdotal evidence that wages are picking up, that inflation's going to be getting to the top end of the RBA target band, the RBA will have to change its rhetoric and, in fact, change its actions. So the key issues for me will be when we get the quarterly CPI coming out and the news on wages, and that will determine it. So if I'm right and both of those indicators point to an acceleration in both indicators, then the RBA will have to start hiking interest rates around the middle of this year.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
That was economist Stephen Koukoulas. Find him at thekouk.com. There you go, Michael. Interest rates on hold for now, but keep an eye on inflation and wages.
Yeah, and I'll mark in the calendar the first Tuesday of every month, and we'll see what happens this year. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
That's it for today. Make sure you've hit follow on the podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was The Fast Five by Fear and Greed.